Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Lizzie. If you're new here, I co-run a video production company with my fiance, Chris Howe, and today we're talking about double exposures. So double exposures are an editing style or a technique that I've always wanted to learn, but I haven't yet. But I really want to do a YouTube video about it, so I thought we could bring in an expert. My friend Anna is truly an expert when it comes to double exposures. She's developed an entire course on double exposures, so today, in true social distancing fashion, we're going to do a virtual collab. I'm gonna call her up on Zoom right now and we're gonna get into the tutorial. Hi, Anna.
Hey, Lizzie, how are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
Good.
So tell us what we're gonna be doing today.
Well, I am a wedding and brand photographer here in Portland, Oregon, and I have been diving into double exposures for the past 5 years, and it's been really fun and really amazing. And I launched this little tiny project where people are taking selfies like all over the world, sending them to me, and I'm making them double exposures during quarantine while we're all stuck inside and looking for things to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, you made one of our cat already.
Yes, that's right. And I'm gonna make one of you today. And that's I'm gonna show you how to get the perfect selfie for it. And then I'm going to show you exactly how to make a double exposure. I just finished up production on this really juicy guide that I've been working on the past month that dives really deep into the concept and theories of double exposure and like helps you understand it from like a theory perspective so that you can take all the techniques and develop like your own recipe of double exposure. And it's been super fun and I'm super excited to launch it. And today I'm going to be teaching you kind of like a overview of how to make a double exposure. And then if you're a photographer and you want to dive like deeper into how double exposures work and how to take them to the next level, and how to really understand all the nuances behind them, then this course would be an amazing next step for that.
Perfect, I'm so excited. So what would be like the most simplest form of taking a double exposure photo? Would it be like on your iPhone and then the most complicated or most professional would be on your DSLR or something like that?
Yeah, but during quarantine, I wanted to bring it down a couple notches and make it really like all of us could participate in this art form. And so that brought me to like, everybody has a phone right now in quarantine. We all have access to some kind of sky that we can take a picture in front of. Okay,
so how do I take, or how would anybody who's watching this video take the perfect starter photo for this double exposure?
So you need to create a silhouette. Okay. So pretty much a silhouette is where your background is brighter than you, the subject, so that you're in shadow. So the easiest way to do that is to just stand in front of a bright window on a bright day. Now, in true Portland fashion, it's pretty dark and overcast today. So today wouldn't be the most ideal day to do it. So let's say this chalkboard is a window. So you're just gonna stand in front of your chalkboard and you're gonna have your phone right here. So phone, you, window. You want to, the trick is you want to expose for your background. Your phone is going to think, surely you want yourself to be exposed properly. So let me help you out and let me expose for you and we'll blow out the background. So you kind of have to be like, no phone, I actually do know what I'm doing. So a couple ways to do that. You can press on the background on your phone. So like you would press like right here and it will expose and you can even lock it in place there. So you want to expose for the background, which will automatically put you in shadow. And then you just kind of want to turn to the profile so that there's a clear profile. You want to move like your hair out of the way so you have a really clean, clear jawline and profile. You can wear a hat or not, whatever you want. Some people are wearing masks, which is really cool. And then you're just gonna take several, like move your chin up, kind of move around a little bit since you can't really see what you're doing. Just take several, then check them out. And sometimes you'll check them out and be like, oh, I'm not really in shadow, or oh, that's a weird angle. But people, surprisingly, like people are sending them in from rooftops in India, from like a boat in Australia. Like you can do this anywhere. Basically, you just need your background to be brighter than you. And the easiest way to do that is a window. Yeah, and then I can take it from there and I can turn it into a really cool double exposure. It's kind of cool how it works.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later when I send you my photo.
Okay, cool. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so now let's make a double exposure in Photoshop. As I mentioned before, I have just finished production on this guide that has 7 really simple but very in-depth steps in how to make a double exposure. And that guide is perfect for photographers who are wanting to expand their creative voice, who have always wanted to learn how to make not just double exposures, but actually like really good beautiful double exposures and want to understand how double exposures work and how to make their own. Not just how to watch a really quick tutorial and then know some of the basic steps, but not really understand the whole in-depth theory behind double exposure so that they can really produce their own style. I wanted to bring the concept of double exposures down a little bit to a more simplified version so that it could be really widely accessible to all of us during this quarantine time. And that's why I launched this really fun project called the Selfie Double Exposures, where people are sending me their selfies from their phones from all over the world, and I'm creating double exposures with them and sending them back. So the bottom image, which is always the portrait, is what I call a base image. The image that we're double exposing on top, layering on top, is called what I call the overlay image. So Lizzie sent me this really great window silhouette of her, and I am going to use this kind of simplified version of my process to turn this into something really beautiful. So let's dive in. So here you see that Lizzie stood in front of her window perfectly. She has a really clear profile, and it's great. This is exactly it. Now, her phone probably didn't let her get completely in shadow. Ideally, for these photos, we would have a clear sky behind her. What we're gonna do is we're just pretty much gonna erase the background, and we're gonna create a positive and negative space. We're gonna create a very clear in shadow shape of Lizzie and her profile. And then we're gonna erase the background, and we're gonna have two really clear contrasted areas of dark and light. Then we're gonna layer our overlay image on top, and you'll see how that affects the dark and the light. So to start, I'm here in Photoshop, and the reason you need to be in Photoshop is because you need layers. So over here is where the layers are. Right now we just have one layer, which is her image. This is why you can't do this in Lightroom, because Lightroom does not do layers, and layers are essential for double exposures. So I'm gonna come up here to adjustments, and I'm gonna go to levels. Pretty much I just want more contrast. There's not a lot of contrast between her and her background right now. They're about the same tones. So I'm gonna take my shadows and I'm gonna bring them towards the center. And as you can see, that creates a really clear dark shape, and it puts her almost entirely in shadow. I'm gonna bring my highlights also towards the center, which looks, you know, as a photograph, absolutely terrible. Like it was taken on like a 2002 point and shoot camera, but that doesn't matter because we're erasing all of that anyway. What we're looking for is as much contrast between her and her background as possible. So as you see there how there's very little contrast, and here we have quite a bit. And that's because we're just gonna be tracing her shape here. I'm gonna come to my background layer. I'm gonna come over here to color, and I'm just gonna select the color of the shade that's already here. I'm on my paintbrush tool right now. I'm gonna have it a pretty hard setting here, about 80%. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of trace. A lot of this is already in shadow, which is great. I'm just gonna go ahead and trace everywhere where her body is. I'm going to put in complete shadow, and we're gonna create a really nice shape. I'm gonna soften that brush a bit as I go along her hairline. Don't worry about how the hairline looks in the back here, because that's actually not gonna be as relevant, and you'll see why as we get further along. So now we have a really clear profile shape. This is her unique shape. It's very clear. Now we need to get rid of all of this in the background. So we're pretty much gonna do the same thing, but with white. So we're gonna come in here and just select the clouds. We're just gonna paint. Make sure your opacity is at 100. And again, this is not how I usually jump into a double exposure. This is a technique really specific to these selfie double exposures, and a really fun kind of pared down version of all the steps that I go into depth in the guide. So usually I don't erase backgrounds like this, is what I'm saying. You can see it's pretty pixelated because it's a cell phone image. This technique is specific to people sending me cell phone selfies and kind of dealing with that, so. It's fun though. It yields a really cool end product. And you can use this same technique on a really beautiful fine art level, like with her lips there. With a camera, you can do this exact same technique. So now, as you see, we have this really, really clear shape of her face and the background, which looks very like uninspiring as it is right now. I'm gonna bring her a little bit more into center. But once we overlay something on top of that, you're gonna see the magic happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what overlay images look like. In my guide, in my full guide, I go over how to gather ideal overlay images, what you're looking for in overlay images, what different types of overlay images do to different base images, all of that kind of stuff. So you just really understand how to gather your own overlay images. images. But really quickly for this tutorial, I'm just gonna show you a couple. So here's one, here's the other, and here's the third. These are all with me just pointing upwards at a tree and gathering the shape of that tree, the shape and the texture. So this is me looking for shape and texture, like that's a magnolia tree. No idea what tree this is, but it had beautiful shapes of leaves. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this one. So I just copied, pasted, and because her image is so small, because it's from her phone, I need to rotate this around. This is also something I talk about in my guide about how to rotate and find the right placement for your overlay image. Now you can see it looks terrible, and that's because right now it's being affected, if you look over here in layers, by that contrast layer. It's underneath it, and therefore it's being affected by it. So we just want to move it above that contrast layer so that it's not being affected by that. So here we have that image on top. Now, I am going to, right now these are like layers to a cake. So you only see what is on top. So this layer right here is on top, and that's all we can see. We can't see anything underneath it. And we want to be able to blend what this top layer is with these bottom layers. And to do that, you come to this here, which is the blending modes. And there are tons of different blending modes. And you can just play around for hours with different blending modes. I always do screen. I do screen 90% of the time. So I just turned that top layer to screen, and now I can still move it around and we can find a really nice place for it. And I think I might even bring that image to a smaller scale. I think that looks really cool, and her profile is still very clear. It's not like washed out too much, you know, it's still very clear. There we go. I think that's a really cool placement for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and crop this down a bit so that she's a bit more in center. As you can see, this looks cool, but it looks very digital. Like this line here looks kind of terrible. And like, it just looks very contrasty and sharp and very digital. And because double exposures originally were done with film, where you would expose the same frame with two different exposures. You would take two pictures on one frame. I like my double exposures, even though they are built in Photoshop. I like them to feel like film, to give them a vintage feel. So I do a couple things. I'm not gonna go over them in depth because they take some time to go over them. I definitely go over them in the guide. I'm just going to reference what I do. I basically add some vintage tones, some grain, and I definitely make it very matte. So I'm just gonna go ahead and come into my little actions here in Photoshop, and I'm just gonna apply my own little version of all the things that I've put together already. And as I said, it's a lot to go through, so I'm not gonna go through all of it in this shorter tutorial, but if you wanna hear me dive into this, I do in the guide, definitely. So you can see, I'm gonna show you a little before and after on this. So that's what we had before. It still looks really cool, but to me, this is way less interesting. When you flatten out the transition, so this is way less contrasted. It's very matte, and I added some vintage tones in there. This to me feels a lot more timeless, and that's what I'm more interested in with double exposures. So that's a key element for me. I also kind of want to get rid of this harsh line right here. I think it's awkward, and I think that because we had to mask out her hair and stuff, it just kind of looks awkward. So I'm just gonna kind of softly erase that. How I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna come over to my paintbrush again. Really simple. I'm gonna just select right here and pick a color. And with a pretty soft brush, I'm just gonna paint all around the edges and make sure that everything is the same color. I'm gonna come up here to opacity and bring that down like to 50% and just start really softly painting over this sharp line here. And I wouldn't want to do that at 100% opacity because it would look very awkward. So now I've gotten that at a really nice blend, but there's still a few sharp lines. So I'm just gonna come over here and I'm gonna get my patch tool, and I'm just gonna like kind of cling on to some of those sharp lines and just like bring them to a new space. And that further blends, especially like in these areas. Okay, so this looks so much more interesting to me than where we were before. This looks a lot more vintage. It looks a lot more compelling. It looks kind of like this floating head, and yet it's completely unique to Lizzie because that is her profile. This is a finished image. This is an image that is so fun. People are printing these out and putting them on their walls of their children, of their pets, of themselves. It's such a fun way to kind of update those like black ink silhouettes of like their kids' faces. of their profiles. This is kind of like an interesting like retro but modern version of that. They are so fun to make. I made Lizzie a couple other ones. Here is one I made. That's the one I just made. And here is another one I made. So, you know, they can go in a million directions depending on what your overlay image is. And they're so fun to play around with. If you want one of these, I can 100% make you one. They're only 25 bucks. And if you want this, if you actually like love double exposures and actually want to understand how double exposures really work so that you can make your own masterpieces, totally get this guide. You're going to get a special discount if you're hearing this because you're hearing it on Lizzie's channel. I hope that was fun. It was really fun to make this for Lizzie, and I'm excited to see what you guys make.
You guys have just fast forwarded to the future. And you know what the great part about that is? Well, I tried to make it an easier transition for you first of all, so I wore the same overalls. I know it's a different hoodie, we're gonna move past that. I have a finished photo book to show you from my friends at Sal Digital. So I got this made as a thank you to Anna for helping me with this video and basically doing the entire tutorial. So I just wanted to show off this photo book to you guys because Sal Digital is sponsoring today's video. Thank you guys so much. I totally would have been greedy and got a photo book made for myself, but I thought I would be a generous person. And here we are. So this actually isn't even the photo book itself. This is just the case that the photo book comes in. So I picked this beautiful canvas cover. It's got a leather interior. We all love a good leather interior. It's got this ribbon to actually lift out the photo book itself. So it's completely protected in this case, which I really appreciate. And this is the photo book itself. It's got a gorgeous acrylic cover. I chose a self-portrait double exposure of Anna for the cover because this is all her photos. It's got this gorgeous, luxurious photo paper inside. And let's just fast forward a little bit. And there's my double exposure. I had to put myself in here, okay? I'm not that narcissistic, geez. So this particular photo book is from Sal Digital's professional line. They do have lots of options to customize the look of your photo book, but this was the one I felt best suited to Anna's work, so we went with the professional line for this one. Sal Digital actually has their own software to build these photo books, so it is really easy to use. I built this one myself. They have a few template options, so if you want this to take 5 minutes, say you're just looking for a quick and easy photo book for some family photos, then you can just drag and drop all your photos into the template. It populates itself and then you can just get it mailed to you. But if you want more control over your photo book, say you're like me, you want a high quality photo book made of your professional photos, maybe to sell your clients, or maybe you're in wedding video production, for example, and you want to offer these photo books as part of your package, then you can absolutely customize your own template. So for this particular photo book, I started with a template because I thought, oh, well, first of all, let's just try their templates and it'll take like 5 minutes. But I had so much fun playing around with the different options of where to put photos and text and little add-on graphics that they offer as well. So if you want something quick and easy, this will work for you. If you want something where you have a little more control, then this will also work for you. So I'm super impressed with the quality of these photo books. If you guys are interested in getting one of these photo books, I'll have a discount code linked in the description box below. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Sal Digital, for sponsoring this video. And if you guys like this video, please feel free to give it a like down below, subscribe if you're not already, and hit the bell to get notified when I post new videos. I'll see you in the next one.